Right, let us start with a recap. Uh, so, in the last lecture, couple of days back, we are still discussing relations, and actually, now what we are going to start with is something which you may not have covered in your school level when you discuss relations. Maybe not in today's lecture, but in upcoming lectures. So, what we had discussed last time, I'll just quickly summarize. We had discussed different kinds of relations. So we understood what is reflexive relation, wherein for all pairs, for all elements A in A, we had A comma A pairs in the given relation. Similarly, we saw its complement, which is irreflexive relation. Then what we discussed was various versions of symmetric. Okay, a symmetric relation. We said a relation is said to be symmetric if for all pairs A B in R, we have B comma A or its inverse in R. Right, and then we saw various versions of symmetric, like you had one version called anti-symmetric, which basically meant that uh, whenever AB is in R and BA is also in R, then A should be equal to B. Okay, if the two values in the ordered pair are not equal, then its inverse should not be there. Okay, only then it is said to be anti-symmetric. And as we discussed some examples, it is possible for a relation to be symmetric as well as anti-symmetric. Okay, and anti-symmetric is not actually a complement of the symmetric relation. Okay, so what is the complement of symmetric relation, or rather, uh, what is an asymmetric relation? Can anyone recall? So one we saw is symmetric, other we saw is anti-symmetric, wherein the two values should be equal. Only then the ordered inverse pairs are allowed. And then what is asymmetric? Anyone recalls what is asymmetric? Yes, class. Anyone? What is an asymmetric relation? One class. It has been just 3 or 4 days. Hmm. Okay, so in general, asymmetric relation is if whenever there's a pair A, B in R, then in no case it should be that BA is also in R. Okay, for any order tuple A comma B in R, the inverse should not be there. Okay, so it's like opposite of symmetric. And as rightly pointed out by Dhananjay, a relation can be asymmetric if it is both anti-symmetric and it is irreflexive. That means there are no ordered pairs of form A comma A in R. Very good. So these were the three versions we saw of symmetric relation. Then the last relation that we discussed was transitive relation. Okay. So in general, we have transitive relation that for ordered pairs A comma B in R and B comma C in R, we should have ordered pair A comma C in R. Okay. If this is true, then the relation is transitive. But if this third pair is missing, then we say the relation is not transitive. Right. And the last thing that we had discussed in our last lecture was to compute different kinds of possible relations on a set. Okay, and we had discussed how we got these formulas using basic principles, right? So what we are going to discuss today is something called an equivalence relation, and we'll start by discussing various operational relations, and we'll discuss something called closure of relations, which is very important when we come to the practical application of relations. Okay, so let us start. Let us first start with a much simpler topic, which is about combining relations. Okay, so if you recall from our some of the earlier lectures when we discussed set theory, so we discussed various set operations. We saw the operation of union, intersection, set difference, symmetric difference. All these operations had their own ideology how they would be applied, and they were applied on sets to give the desired sets. So all these operations that you have studied on these sets also apply on relations, because relations are also sets, right? They are set of ordered pairs. So let us see how do we simply combine relations. Okay, so when we talk about a relation from set A to B, we know it's a subset of the Cartesian product A cross B, right? So the way you combine two sets, same way two relations can also be combined. Okay, so let's understand it simply by an example. So given two sets, say A and B, okay, and given two relations R1 and R2 consisting of the following ordered pairs, if you want to combine these two relations to form some third kind of relation, that is completely allowed using all the basic set operations. Okay, so like if you look at R1 union R2, it consists of same logic, those pairs which belong to A or to B or both. Okay, so you can see all possible pairs that are in R1 and R2, they have been listed here. You can see 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 2 2, 3 3. All possible pairs have been listed here, right? Similarly, what do we mean when we take intersection of relation? Intersection of relation, like we took intersection of sets, we used to take common elements in the two sets. Similarly, here the idea is same, to take common but not elements, since elements here are ordered pairs, so take the common ordered pair. So that gives you the intersection. Okay, so if you can see in R1 and R2, 1 1 is the only common ordered pair, so that is the intersection. Similarly, if I compute R1 minus R2, okay, what is the definition of A minus B? Yes, class, what should this contain if I write R1 minus R2? Remember always, it focuses on the first set, R1, right? And it consists of those elements which are in R1 but not in R2. Okay, so all possible elements in R2 but which are not in R1. So intersection part you remove. Same applies for R2 minus R1, right? So the same logic, the way you applied set operations on the basic sets, same you can apply on relations also. Okay, the only difference is here the elements are ordered pairs. Okay, so now can you tell me the last one, R1 symmetric difference R2? Yes, what should be the answer for R1 symmetric difference R2? Yes, class. Remember, R1 symmetric difference R2 consists of those ordered pairs which are in A or in B but not in both. Okay, so common things you have to leave out, right? So it will be basically your 1 1, sorry, 1 1 is the intersection, so it won't be there. So 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 2 2, 2 3, right? So basically without intersection everything else will go in symmetric difference. Okay, so this is quite simple. Simple idea is whatever operations you can do on set, same thing you can do on relation, only difference is the elements involved are ordered pairs, right? So this is how you combine relation. There's one more combination possible of relations which is called composition, which we have already seen. We'll again revisit that. So if you recall what is a composition of relation, so if you have a set A, a set B, and set C, suppose, and there's a relation from A to B via R, and there's a relation from B to C via S, then you can define composition of relation ROS as set of all ordered pairs A comma C, such that you have a common element B in set, this middlemost set, such that you have ordered pairs of form AB via R and BC via S. Right? So all the paths that take you from A to C via B, okay, the endpoints of that are what is known as your composition. Okay, now why are we discussing it again here? So if you recall, we discussed that if we have a set A, we can compute its powers like A square, A cube. How can we do that? If I want to I have a set A and I want to compute its powers AI, where I may be from say 1 to some n. How do I compute this powers of a set? Yes, class, how do I compute powers of a set? This is not a relation, it's a set. Very good. It is Cartesian product, right? So like a square is a cube is a into a, and so on. In general, you can have a product of a I times, right? So in general, when we have to take powers of a set, the way we can achieve that is using Cartesian product, right? And can you tell me how will the elements of a cross a look like? Will it be a single element? So set is a single element, right? So suppose 1, 2, 3. How will the elements of a square look like? Very good. A comma b. It will be a pair, right? What about a cube? Very good. It is a triplet, right? So you have a pair here, you have a triplet here, and if you look at general n product, how will each element look like? Yes, class. Very good. It will be a, what you say in general, an n tuple. There will be, for each element there will be n elements, right? Each element will be a n tuple pair, not a pair, n tuple. There will be n elements involved, right? So this was when we have to consider power of a set. Okay, now the question comes, how can you take power of a relation? That is, if I have a relation R, how can I find R square, R cube, and so on and so forth, like Rn? Okay, so that is the next question. How can I perform the operation of computing the powers of a relation? Okay, for set we saw. For set you can do it using Cartesian product, right? So the question is, how do I find the powers of a relation, right? And sorry, very good, by composition, right? And that is how we can recursively define the powers, by using composition of the two relations. Okay, so in general we have the following. If you want to find Rn power, okay, so R1 is R. In general, if you want to find Rn plus 1 power, it is simply product composition of Rn with R. Okay, so if you want to find R square, it is R into R. If you want to find R cube, it is R square into R, and so on and so forth. You can generalize till n plus 1. Okay, so if you want to take powers of a relation, you can do it using composition. Okay, powers of set using Cartesian product, and powers of relation using composition. Okay, so now the question comes, how will the elements of R look like? How do the elements of R look like? Assuming it's a binary relation. Yes? How do the elements of, are they single elements? Are they a pair? Are they a triplet? Are they a n tuple? How does elements of R look like? Very good. It is a ordered pair. Excellent. What about R square? Okay, before you answer it, remember how composition is formed. Okay, that should make things clear for you. Excellent. It is also a pair. Why? Because we know composition of relation. No matter how many compositions we take, instead of R square, we take many R's. Okay, but at the end, when we navigate this part, what we'll at the end consider is only the endpoints. Okay, so whether you consider the elements of R, you consider the elements of R square, you consider the elements of R cube or Rn plus 1, they all will be ordered pairs. Okay, and why is it so? by definition of composition, because composition only helps you to navigate the path in between the different sets and gives you the endpoints, right? And the main thing is, whether you take any powers of R is ultimately a binary relation. So your tuple, it is always subset of just two, product of two sets, a Cartesian product of just two sets. So it will always be a pair. Okay, so there's a contrasting difference here. If you want to compute the powers of set, it's done using Cartesian product. If you compute the powers of relation, it's done using composition. The second major difference is the elements of the powers of set, they will keep on increasing the members. If you consider set, you will have a single element. If you consider a square or product of two sets, it will be a pair, and so on and so forth. It will increase the n tuple. Whereas in relation, if the relation by default is binary, all the powers of the relation will have only ordered pairs. Okay, and suppose instead of a binary, if it is suppose a ternary relation, ternary means it is subset of a comma b comma c, then what will be the pairs? R square, R cube, Rn. If it's a ternary relation, ternary means it's subset of three sets a, b and c, then what will be the elements of the powers of relation R? Understand the generalized thing, right? Relation, if it's binary, all elements are pairs. Now I am saying, suppose instead of binary, I say it's a ternary relation. Excellent, it will all be triplets. Similarly, if it was an n-ary relation, then all will be n tuples. Okay, so this is something you need to keep in mind, the difference between powers of a set and powers of a relation. Okay, is this clear? Is this clear to everyone? Okay, excellent. Okay, so let us try to, solve some examples and see the powers of a given relation. Okay, so suppose I give you a relation R, which is as follows. You need to find its various powers. Okay, so first thing, let's try to find R square, which you can find out R composition R. So you have to take a composition of this relation with itself. Can you tell me the ordered pairs? Okay, just for the sake of ease, rewrite this and try to take all possible combinations of one to other and write the endpoints. Yes, class. What are the all possible ordered pairs in R square? Take it like this, a 1, 1, 1, 1. So the endpoints are 1, comma 1, right? Then 1, 1, you cannot take a transitive because it starts with 2. Okay, so there are no pairs here which start with 1, so all the possible combinations are taken. Similarly, if I take 2, 1, 1, 1, then 2, 1 is a transitive pair. Okay, similarly, repeat for others like 3, 2, and then you have 2, 1, right? So that means 3, 1 is also possible. I have 4, 3, 3, 2, so 4, 2 is also possible. Any other pairs? 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2. Okay. Is it clear how to take them? You just have to take the transitive pairs. That means anything of this form, A, B in R, B, C in S, which here is R, and then you take the two endpoints in ROS. Okay. You have to take paths 1, 1, 1, 1. So endpoints are 1, 1. Similarly, 2, 1, 1 1, the endpoints are 2 1. 3 2, 2 1, endpoints are 3 1. 4 3, 3 2, endpoints are 4 2. Yeah, I'll do that, Tanya, no issues. Okay, so how do you find relations? Okay, so there are multiple ways by which we can do it. Let me do it using arrow diagram maybe. Okay, so I have say 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So I have 1 1, I have 2 1, I have 3 2, and I have 4 3. I have 3 2 and I have 4 3. Okay, now I have to see, Tanya, what are the paths from this set to this set via B. Okay, so I can see one path is here, 1 2 1 2 1. So endpoints are 1 and 1. Similarly, I have 2 1 1. So the endpoints are 2 and 1. Simply draw the relation using arrow diagrams and see what are the paths from say first set to the last set via B. Similarly, I have 3 2 and 1, right? So the endpoints are 3 and 1. Similarly, I have 4 3 and 2. So endpoints are 4 comma 2. Are there any other paths from first disk to last disk via B, Tanya? Right? So is it clear how to do this? So you can do it via arrow diagram, or you can simply write it down and see what are the possible pairs where there's a common element B. Okay, and you just write the first and last pair. Okay, is this clear how to write this? Okay, so this was R square. Excellent. Now find out R cube. Okay, how do I write R cube? R cube is R square composition R. Okay, so you have to consider this relation and take all possible pairs with this relation. Okay, it is simple. You can start with 1 1 1 1 1 1. So endpoints are 1 1, and there are no here is one more 1 1. So there are no elements starting with 1, so we can skip it. Then we have 2 1 1 1 2 1 2 1. There are no other elements. Okay, then we have 3 2 2 1, so we get 3 1. Then we have 4 3 3 1 4 1. 4 2 2 1 4 1 is already there. Any other pairs? Any other pairs? Just take all possible combinations from R square to R and see if you have any transitive pairs. Yes, class, any other transitive pairs? Class, is this clear how to find the powers? Okay, can you find out R4? So R4 will be RQ composition R. So you have to take composition of this with original R. Yes, class, compute R4 and see what are the possible ordered pairs. Okay, so Dhananjay thinks it's 1 1, 2 1, 3 1, 4 1. Okay, any other ordered pairs? So you can see these two are same. right? And now if you compute R5, R6, you will see all of them are same. Okay, why is it so? The question is, so you saw that R square was different, but R3, then if you take any powers further of R, you will see they are all same. Okay, all this is because of a very important fact that in general, whenever you have a transitive relation, okay, so one way to find transitive relation is to find these pairs. If AB is in R and BC is in R, then AC should also be in R. Okay, but if you want to find out whether a relation is transitive or not, one way to find out is that a relation is transitive if and only if all its pairs, higher pairs, are subset of it. Okay, now let's try to verify it. So is this R a transitive relation? Yes, class, is this R a transitive relation? No, it is not, right? Because you can see you have 3 2, you have 2 1, but you don't have 3 1, right? So it's not transitive. That's why you will see that its powers are not subset of it. Like if you look at 1 R square, which is 1 1 2 1 3 1 4 2, it's not subset of this. There are some extra elements, right? But now let us look at R3. Is R3 a transitive relation? It is, right, because 1 1, wait about 1 1, you have say 2 1, 1 1, and then 1 1, or you have 3 1, 1 1, and then 1 1. So R3 is a transitive relation. Okay, now if you look at any higher powers of R3, you will see it will always be equal to it. Okay, or in general, it will always be subset of it, any higher powers of R3. Okay, so in general, if a relation is transitive, you'll always find out that its higher powers are its subset. Okay, so this is one other way of finding the relation is transitive or not, by using the fact that what are its higher powers. Okay, like you can notice that once you started computing the powers of R beyond 3, all of them, you can verify yourself, will be same. Okay, this is because R3 basically was a transitive relation, so all its powers will be contained in it, or most probably they will be exactly equal to it. Okay, so this is one other way by which you can compute the composition of a relation and find out whether a relation is transitive or not. Okay, is this clear how to find the higher powers of R and how is it related to transitivity? Thus, is this clear? Okay, excellent. All right, so these were how you can combine different relations. Okay, now what we are going to start next is something called closure properties. Okay, so all this, a lot of text on this slide. I just want to motivate what is closure used for. Okay, so for this, let us consider a computer network which has different data centers in different cities of US. Okay, so I have a data center in Boston, one in Chicago, one in Denver, and one in Detroit. Okay, and maybe some one in New York and San Diego. And I have some communications made between all of them. I have a one-way telephone line from Boston to Chicago. From Chicago, from Boston to Detroit, also I have a telephone line, direct connection. From Chicago to Detroit, I have a line. And from Detroit to Denver, I have a line. And I've skipped it. The New York and San Diego are connected. So this is how my graph looks like. There is an arrow from Boston to Detroit and Boston to Chicago. And there's arrow from Chicago to Detroit and Detroit to Denver. Okay. Now suppose I ask you a question. Let R be a relation that there's a telephone line from data center A to data center B. Okay, and what I'm asking the question, is it possible, or is there some link possible between one or more two data centers? Okay, like is there a link possible from Boston to Denver, right? What would be your answer? I may not have a direct link from Boston to Denver, but is there possible way I can connect from Boston to Denver? Yes, I can do so because there's a telephone line from Boston to Detroit, and from Detroit to Denver, I have a line. So I have an indirect connection, right? But if you only listed the pairs as the direct edges, then you cannot say whether the particular line is there or not, right? Now, if I have to answer this question, are there these indirect lines present or not? What kind of property do you require? Like out of all the properties I studied, reflexive, symmetric, transitive, which property do I require if I want to find these indirect links? Excellent. Transitive relativity, right? Because transitive relation relates to different sets and finds their indirect links, right? So now, if I add these relations, so what I already have here, so what I already have here is I have a relation between Boston and Chicago. I have a relation between Chicago and Detroit. I have a relation between Boston and Detroit, and I have a relation between Detroit and Denver. Okay. Now, if I have to find all possible indirect combinations, so what I have to do? What all ordered pairs I need to add? Forget about New York and San Diego. Here, just here. If I want to add all possible indirect links, what all pairs should I add? Yes, class? Anyone? So these are direct links, right? Now I want to add indirect links also so that I can answer this question. Are there, links possible between different data centers? Can you tell me what all pairs I need to add to R? So Boston to Chicago is there. All the direct links are there, right? Very good. I have Boston to Denver, right? If I add this link here, then I have stated all possible indirect links. Okay. So adding this ordered pair so that, yes, Chicago to Denver is again right. One other link. So if I add all these remaining pairs to this R, then what will happen? Then can I answer all this question that determine the total number of indirect pairs? If I add these two pairs to R, then can I then answer this question? What are the all possible connection between data centers if I add these two pairs there? Yes, right. And this is known as what is known as transitive closure of R. Okay. So in short, like by this motivational example, what I want to tell you, closure simply means closure of any relation simply means what all pairs are missing, which we can add to that relation so that it becomes that particular relation. That means if I have to make some relation as reflexive closure of that relation, then I have to add all those ordered pairs that would make that relation reflexive. The smallest number of pairs that I need to add so that relation becomes reflexive. Similarly, in this case, what are the smallest number of ordered pairs which I need to add to make this relation transitive? That is known as transitive closure. Similarly, what are the different ordered pairs I need to add to a relation to make it symmetric? That is known as symmetric closure. Okay. So in general, what is closure? Closure is simply what are the smallest ordered pairs or smallest relation that you need to add to R so that the relation is complete. Okay. So let us see the exact examples so that you have a better understanding. So let us start with the reflexive closure. Suppose I give you a relation R which is 1 comma 1, 1 comma 2, 2 comma 1, 3 comma 2 on a set 1 comma 2 comma 3. We know it's not reflexive, right? Why? Because for the pairs 2 comma 2 and 3 comma 3, they are missing. Now if I tell you what, what is the smallest possible reflexive relation on this, that means what is the smallest possible addition of ordered pairs that you can add to R which will make it reflexive, what would be your answer? Yes, class. What would be the smallest addition you do to R such that it is a reflexive relation? Very good. It is 2 comma 2 and 3 comma 3. If I added these two to this, it will clearly be a reflexive relation. Okay, and that is what is known as reflexive closure. Okay, so what is a reflexive closure? Reflexive closure, generally denoted by delta, in general would be set of all ordered pairs A comma A such that A is in A, right? And these are basically, so there's a typo here, these are actually the diagonal or equality relation on A, right? If you in general to any relation R add the diagonal relation, it forms its reflexive closure. Okay, because you have taken a union, so whatever elements are already there, they will be there, but what you add are those elements which are missing. Okay, or in general, reflexive closure of R denoted by this reflexive R is simply obtained by adding to R those elements A comma A which are missing. Okay, if you do this, then you are able to get the smallest possible reflexive relation of R, right? So what is reflexive closure? Reflexive closure is the those diagonal elements which are not already in R. Okay, adding the diagonal elements A comma A which are not already in R. If you take its union with R, that is your reflexive closure. The smallest possible reflexive relation of R. Okay, now can you try this one? What is the reflexive closure of relation A B such that A is strictly less than B on set of integers? If I want to make this relation a reflexive closure, what should I add to it? What form of ordered pair should I add to it? Yes, class. What should I add to this relation? So I already have this. A is strictly less than B. Okay, I want to make it a reflexive closure. What should I add? How will phi make it reflexive closure? Remember, reflexive is all the elements in A should have the elements of form A comma A in R. Excellent. It is by removing the strict inequality and making it equal to, right? So in other words, I can write it in this manner. So this is already my definition of R. What I'll do, I'll take a union with delta, which is set of all pairs A comma A such that A is in Z. Okay, so if I combine the two, I want A is less than B as well as A comma A should be there. So instead of taking a strict inequality, I can take less than or equal to, right? That would make it uh, a reflexive closure because it would include all the elements of form A comma A, right? Now let us similarly try to understand symmetric closure. Okay, so in general, a symmetric, if I have a relation R on set A, then R inverse is simply the inverse of the all ordered pairs in R. Then if I take the union of R with R inverse, this will always be a symmetric closure. That is, whatever elements you have in R, you take their inverse and add it or take a union with it. That will become your symmetric closure. Okay, or in simple words, symmetric closure is obtained by adding those ordered pairs to R which do not already have an inverse. Those A comma B which do not have their inverse B comma A, you add their inverse and it will become the smallest possible symmetric relation or smallest possible what you say as symmetric closure. Okay. Now can you tell me for the given relation R on the given set, what is the reflexive R. What you need to add to make this R reflexive? Okay, so I already have a 1 comma 1. 3 comma 3 is already there, right, Ankita? So what is missing is 2 comma 2 and 4 comma 4. Okay, remember, reflexive closure is those diagonal elements which are missing. So 1 comma 1 and 3 comma 3 are already there. So 2 comma 2 and 4 comma 4. Very good. Now what about symmetric closure? What all do I need to add? Remember, for all ordered pairs, you need to see their inverse is there or not. Whatever are the missing inverses, you will have to add. Yes, class. So what is there? So 1 comma 1 already has its inverse. 1 comma 3, 3 comma 1, 2 comma 4, 4 comma 2 is missing. Right? So 4 comma 2 and 3 comma 4 is missing, and that is what is our symmetric and reflexive closure. Okay. Similarly is our transitive closure. Okay. Transitive closure in general, if I have a relation R on set A, then we just discussed that powers of relation is the composition of the relation. So if I define a R star, which is union of Ri's from 1 to infinity, that means R square, R cube till infinity. This is known as general transitive closure of R. Okay, to take the infinite composition of infinite powers of R, right? But since infinite, I mean, we don't deal with infinite things. If we have a set which has finite n elements, in general we can find the transitive closure R by taking the union of the compositions of R till Rn. Okay, you take the union of R square, R cube till the power which is same as the number of elements there, and you are assured to get a transitive closure. That is the smallest possible transitive relation of R. Okay, now if I give you a relation R which is as follows, can you tell me how can I get the transitive closure? Before you compute that, can you tell me in terms of notation itself? It will be union of R square till what should I take the union? To get the smallest possible transitive relation of R, till what power should I take the, very good, till R3, right? As I said, for a set with n elements, you don't need to go till infinity because all of them, the remaining powers will be same. Okay, just go till the point as the number of elements. Okay, now can you quickly find the transitive closure of R? Okay, so what is R square? Okay, take the composition of R with R. What is R square? Okay, so I have to take transitive composition of R with R. So what are the possible ordered pairs in R square class? So I have 1, 2, 2, 3. So I have 1, 3. I have 2, 3, 3, 3. So 2, 3 and 3, 3 itself. Right? 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3. Very good. And what about R cube? R cube is R square composition R. So that is also actually the same. You'll get it same, right? So in general, if I have to take a transitive closure of R, it is union of R with the R union of R square, R cube. Okay, and this is what you will get. Okay, so these are your closure relations. Okay, and I motivated you with a practical example where this can be relevant. You know, in a huge network where you have direct links and you want to find the indirect links, there your closure can help you to find all indirect parts. That's a practical example of closure, right? So just to summarize, what is closure? Closure of any relation is the smallest possible that relation. Like reflexive closure of a relation is the smallest possible reflexive relation formed for the R. Similarly, symmetric closure on R is the smallest possible symmetric relation that you can form on R. And same applies for transitive, right? So, in simple words, if you want to find a reflexive closure, you need to add all the diagonal elements which are missing in the relation. And for the symmetric closure, you need to add all the pairs and you need to add the inverse of all the pairs which are missing. Okay, is this clear? The closure, three closures, and how where its practical significance is this clear, class? What is a closure? Any questions, class? Is this clear? Okay, excellent. So let us then move to the final type of relation, which is very relevant here, which is the equivalence relation. Okay, which I'm sure you already know. So given a non-empty set S, a relation R on S is said to be an equivalence relation if it is all three of them. It's a reflexive relation, it's a symmetric relation, as well as a transitive relation. Okay, so what we mean is relation R is said to be an equivalence relation if for every element A in S, A is related to A, or we have ordered pairs of form A comma A, and if there is a ordered pair A comma B in R, then its inverse should also necessarily be in R. And in general, if we have these ordered pairs of form A comma B in R and B comma C in R, then A comma C should also be in R, right? So if your relation is symmetric, it is reflexive and transitive, it's known as an equivalence relation. And the elements related by this relation are said to be equivalent, or they are normally denoted by this relation, A equivalent to B. Okay, so any popular example which is an equivalence relation? We have been discussing a lot of examples: perpendicular, subset, parallel. Any relation which is an equivalence relation? Yes, class. Any relation that you can think of immediately which is an equivalence relation? So diagonal element is trivially right because both of them are same. Okay, what about equal to? Is equal to relation a equivalence relation? Suppose on integers. Is equal to relation a equivalence relation on integers? It is, right? Because A is equal to A. If A is equal to B, then naturally B is also equal to A. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then we know A is equal to C. Okay, so like equal to is like a very trivial equivalence relation. Okay, let us see about some more relations. So suppose R is a relation on set of real numbers such that A is related to B only if A minus B is an integer. Okay, now is this a equivalence relation? Okay, so let us try to just quickly argue it. So first let us see reflexive. So we have A comma A should belong to R, that is A minus A, which is 0, is an integer, which is true, right? Now let us quickly see symmetric. So if we have A, B is in R, that is A minus B is an integer, then we need B comma A should also be in R. Okay, which is true because if a minus b is an integer, so is b minus a, right? Because it would simply be inverse of a minus b, right? So it is also an integer. Finally, we need to show its transitive. That is, if a comma b is an r, a minus b is an integer, and b minus c is also an integer, then a comma c should also belong to r, right? So if we simply add them up, a minus b and b minus c, right? So sum of two integers is also an integer. So a minus c is also in r because these will cancel out, right? So a minus b is trivially a equivalence relation. Right? Is this clear, class? Very simple example. Now, let's do the last example here, which is congruence modulo m, a very important relation in mathematics. So, in general, congruence modulo, so we say that a, b are congruence modulo m if basically m perfectly divides a minus b. Okay, so if you divide a minus b by m, it should be perfectly divisible by it. Okay, is this a equivalence relation on integers? Yes, no? What you need is argue it on same manner like we did it. Okay, let's see first reflexive. Okay, so if you want to do reflexive, you want a minus a should be perfectly divisible by m. Okay, which is true because it's 0, so it's perfectly divisible by m, right? So we can say 0 is 0 modulo m. Let's see symmetric. So if I say symmetric, so we assume that a comma b belongs to m. So I have a minus b is perfectly divided by m, or in other words, ab mod m is true, right? What I need to show is b modulo a is also true, right? Which we will show it's trivially true. If a is congruent modulo b, that means we have a minus b perfectly divides m. Okay, so we can write it as follows: a minus b is equal to k into m, where k is some integer, right? Because it's perfectly dividing it. Right, now if I just rewrite it, b minus a, what is b minus a equal to in these terms? This is given, right? You need to find b minus a and show that it is also perfectly divisible. Right, if a minus b is equal to km, what is b minus a equal to? Very good, minus km, and we know minus k is also an integer, so it is a symmetric relation, right? Similarly, if I do for transitive, I have the following: a is congruent modulo b and b is congruent modulo c, right? So a minus b is say some km and b minus c is some ln, right? Now if I have to find a minus c, it is simply km plus lm, and k plus l is also an integer. So we have a is also congruent modulo c m, right? So congruence modulo is also a equivalence relation, right? So in general, whenever you are given some relation and check whether it's equivalence, just try it for all three cases by fundamental principles. Okay, is this clear, class? This is clear. Equivalence relation we already know, and what are equivalence relation examples. Okay, so let me just introduce the topic and we'll discuss it more tomorrow. So what we are going to discuss next is something called equivalence class. Okay, so let me just motivate what is in general an equivalence class. Okay, so suppose consider a set A, which is set of all students in your college. Okay, so suppose let A be set of all students in 2020 BTech IT batch. Okay, so it's like your classroom who have graduated from some high school, which is trivially true. Now, let R be a relation on this A, which consists of all the pairs XY, where X and Y have graduated from same school. Okay, so XY such that X and Y have graduated from same school. Okay, so suppose I'll say DPS is the same school, or some all possible schools, but which have been same schooling. So suppose I'll pick some schools, say DPS, I'll pick Burnhall, and so many other schools, but I'm not tagging them together. In general, I put two students here if they have graduated from same high school, right? Now, suppose I consider a particular student. Okay, so suppose Irtika, one element from this set A, okay, and I say now what are the set of students which are related to Irtika with respect to relation R. Okay, so what would this set include? So I want to write all elements of A which are related to Irtika via relation R. So what would this set include? Okay, so I have set A, which is set of all possible students in your batch. Okay, then I define a relation, ordered pair of two students who belong to or who have graduated from same high school. Okay, now I pick one element from set. Okay, and I say I want to return the all the students who are related to this element via R, right? So what would this include in this case? It would include set of all the students who have graduated from same school as X did, or if they can't did, right? So this kind of subset of A is known as equivalence class of a relation. Okay, so what is an equivalence class? Equivalence class of a relation is, so for equivalence class, you require two things. One is you need to define a set, then you need to define a relation. Then you need to pick up one element from it, and then tell all possible subsets of the set A which are related to this element A via the relation R, right? So like if I give you an example, suppose I have a set A 1 comma 2 comma 3, and I have a relation say 1 comma 1, 1 comma 2, 3 comma 1, 1 comma 4, maybe 3 comma 2, right? Now I pick up a set say 1. Now I ask you, what is its equivalence class? Equivalence class should consist of all the elements, not ordered pairs, which are related to 1 via R. So can you tell me what are the elements? Excellent. 1 is related to 1, 1 is related to 2, 1 is related to 4. So 4 is the subset, assuming here is 4 as well, subset of A, but how did you define that? With respect to a particular element. Okay, so this is what we call as equivalence class of a relation. Okay, so tomorrow we'll study more about equivalence classes and how is it relevant to relations and partitions, and we'll also study some important relations like partial order. Okay, all right class, so I'll stop there. Any questions?